Welcome to Holts Academy's 3Design CAD for Jewelry Manufacturing tutorial. In this tutorial, I'd like to talk about a few of the topics we're going to cover in our short course here at Holts Academy. In particular, how 3Design can be used in jewelry design and manufacturing process. Before we start, it might be worthwhile clearing up the question, what is the difference between 3Design and Matrix? Both of them are fine jewelry CAD programs designed to handle a lot of the things you'd be able to handle in normal 3D CAD, specifically from a jeweler's perspective. Whereas Matrix is a surface modeler designed to work in terms of precise fitting components and a kind of architectural way of modeling. You'll start with curves and build it up into solids. 3Design is something called a parametric solid modeler. In English, that means I can build shapes, as you'll see here on the screen. And everything I build is not only based upon something else, but I can go back inside by simply double-clicking and modify it afterwards. No matter how far down the modeling process I go, if I were to take this object, say for example, and combine it with this sphere, take these two objects and use a Boolean add function to combine them, I could at any time go back into an earlier stage of this model, modify the sphere, maybe make it larger here, and I could recompute and rethink the entire surface to match. So every model you do, no matter how late in the game you're working on it, you can go in and modify it later. Alright, now that we've got that out of the way, I'd like to demonstrate to you how to go about building a solitaire in 3Design. And then using parametric tools such as the history tree, we're going to convert that solitaire into a 3-stone ring. So to start with, I'm going to actually go here to the top menu here that says Create Solids, and I'm going to click on it once to switch to the Jeweler's Bench. As you can see, it gives me two different menus here which are accessible with different commands in them. The Jeweler's Bench has the pre-made presets for doing certain types of key things. Now, to start with, actually I could have accessed this from anywhere, but in the toolkit, I'm finding the sketch mode. I want to make sure I'm actually sketching in the right grid, though. I want to work on the OXZ grid plane here. So I'll make sure that's selected. You do it by selecting the edge. It'll turn blue, and go to Sketch. This will open up a sketch window, where we can start doing lines of any sort we want to on here. We only really need one line to start with, however, the basic ring. We'll make it here. We can set it to any size we want, any standard. So I'm in the UK right now. I'm setting it to British sizes. Pick a size here. Let's go for O. Now, as it is right now, this is fine. But what I will do is I want to create an opening at the top here. And so I'm going to go down to this little angle opening thing here, and I'm going to set it to, let's just go for 20 degrees to start with. It's going to be a bit wide, but we'll adjust this later anyway. If I green tick it, it will keep it. At any time I can click on it and go back to it and just re-edit it if we wish. Right now we're fine here. I'll just cancel that. So I'll exit out of the sketch mode with the back arrow here, exit current editor. That carries me back to this view. Now that I have this screen here and I've gone to the Jeweler's Bench, I can go to the Stone Creation menu. I want to make sure that I'm actually working on the ground plane this time. And I'll make sure I'm making a basic stone. Should take a moment. And I'll see a stone in the middle of the work area here, which is easily moved by just grabbing the right arrow. The blue arrow will help me here. If you're not sure about where its position is, we can use this little box in the lower corner here to look at it from the front view. Try that again. And this gives me an idea of where my position is in my stone. That's fine, just maybe say a millimeter leeway between the finger hole and where the stone would be. And now I can go over here to this view, these properties menu here, and decide which kind of stone I want to use. For the center stone, I'd like an emerald. And I'd like it to be 4 wide, that's the first one, by 6 long. Now, if I were to adjust it, you'll see that it's actually, the length is that way. I'm just typing in a number and pressing tab to keep it. If I press enter, it will finish this command. So I want to be careful as to whether I press enter or not. You want to get in the habit of pressing tab whenever you hit any of these or change any of these fields. Now, once we have our stone in the shape we like, I can use the eyeball to preview it. Gives me an idea what to expect. Good enough. And I can click on this hand next to the material section here to determine what material it's going to be. I've actually gone to the old materials section for the sake of demonstrating here, and I've gone to the stones menu. You don't have to by any means. I'm just doing this to make it a bit more clear as to what's actually happening in my work area. So you see now I have a gemstone and a line for the ring rail. The next step, once we have the stone and the ring rail, is to create a ring based upon the ring rail itself. We'll do that by selecting it. It should turn blue. And I'm going to go to a command called Sweeping Wizard. This is in the Jeweler's Bench menu, as I mentioned before. So if I click on this, it will assume that that's the rail I want to actually use in this command. If I hadn't have done that, I would have had to gone down here to Custom Ring and use the hand to select the ring I want to work with. So that feels, there are 3 tabs to this menu, and the first one is, as you can see in red, is focusing on the rail itself. The second tool is for sections. As you can see, it actually labels it as we're going through here. These are going to be the cross sections which are going to appear along the shape itself. To add a new cross section, simply click the plus. You won't see much in the beginning here. Maybe it might be helpful if I just move this up for a second. We'll come back to tree later. And so I've added a section, and there's no properties to it right now. It's just a little square X sitting along the ring rail here. I can drag it anywhere I want to position-wise. We need to actually give it a shape before we can use it. I can either select an existing shape I've drawn in the sketch mode with a hand, or I can go to this little library book and pick the shape I like. We'll go with Gallo. Just double-click at the keep, and we'll have ourselves a nice basic shape. I'm going to position it right about 6 o'clock on the ring here. So you just maneuver it and position it until you're happy with it. Once I have that, I can go through the several other options here to modify its properties. The second and last one is the one of interest to us. This is going to control the size of the profile. Currently, the height and width are tied together. If I drag them together, I can resize it, but the length and width are going to stay together. This doesn't give me necessarily the control I want, although it does over here show me how big it is. So I'm close, but if I want to actually do that exact sizing I want to do, I'll have to turn off keep ratio. This makes the length and width, height, all different dimensions. So I'll change the height to 1.8, press tab to keep it. I'll change the width to 3, press tab to keep it. So that's given me a nice 3 by 1.8 standard lady size of solitaire here. Now for the second profile, I'm going to click on the plus, and it will automatically add one of the same size as the last one I did. Very handy. Nice and easy. I'll leave it at the top here. That's fine. And I'll go back to scale, and I'll make it a bit narrower, 2.5, tab, and the height a bit taller. We'll say 2.2. We can always adjust this later. And then I'll go to the last one of these tabs that controls mirroring. This allows me to create the same shape equally on both sides. So I can then do it a vertical plane here. It gives me an evenly mirrored one. It's more apparent if I actually try messing with the positioning. If I move the position of one, the other will follow, as you can see. It's more easily visible from that side here. So you can see them move together. And so there we have it. If we want to see the ring at any time, I can click on the eyeball to see a preview as I'm working. Now you'll notice if I'd changed something here, like the size of one of these profiles, the eyeball wouldn't necessarily change. It's just quickly drawing the finished ring as a temporary blue shape so you can see what to expect. But I'll make sure I'm using the right color of gold here. Yellow gold's fine. Green tick to finish. And this will give me a yellow band to work with here. I'll take a second. And there we are. Now we have the ring. I want to actually make the setting for the stone. So we'll start with selecting the stone, and then we'll go to the gemstone setting section. There is a bezel we can work with here if I wish. That's for a rub over setting. But I want to actually focus on the claw setting. As of version 8, they actually made it a bit more sophisticated than it ever was with the introduction of different commands for the belts or gallery bars and the claws themselves. Generally speaking, I suggest going through them in the order they're presented here. Start with the belts or gallery bars first. If your stone is already selected, it will assume that's what I want to work with. If I want to zoom in, take a look at what we have here, and you can take a look at the dimensions. The first tab dimensions you probably won't be messing with on the setting. They're going to be pretty close to accurate. If you do need to mess with, it is possible and just tweaking little details. We'll leave them as they are for now. Go to the second one here. This allows us to control size of the profiles. That's fine. And then we have the third one here, which controls the depth of the second profile, which is the one we're interested in here, and the thickness. Now it's going to be a tweaking of both of them. I can even set the size to whatever I want here. 0.7 is fine. And then my positioning, I can just roll it, just center scroll on the mouse, or even type in a number to actually reduce it to what I need it to be. Okay, it looks like it's not quite doing what I want it to, so I'll make the top one smaller instead. That should give me a bit more leeway to work with here. So when I move this up, they should be a bit more cooperative. Now, if the positioning isn't exactly where you want it to be, you can always go to the first one here and use the blue arrow to lift the whole contraption further up the setting if you wish. So between those three, and this is the nice thing about it, is that you can just keep fiddling with it until you get what you like. That's good enough for now. Green, take the keep. And this gives us the basic gallery bars for the setting, holding it in place. I could tighten it in on the sides if I really want to, but this will be okay. And now I can take this piece here, the actual gallery bars, and I can add in claws. And it's smart enough to know where to put them by default, which is good. The first tier is kind of linking into here to what's actually these are attached to. As I mentioned before, every command in 3Design is based upon another command. In this case, the claws are based upon the belts. So I go to the second command here, and this gives me controls over sizing and position. It's starting out with size, so I can make these claws larger or smaller. It's probably a good idea. But I can also set whether I want the claws to be straight or at an angle. So if I want these to be curved, then that will actually make the shapes slightly curved on the ends. And then I can go to the controls for positioning. I believe they're here. There we are. I can then control the angle of the various positions here. And each one's going to twist it in a slightly different way. So the top one is controlling the top edge here. We can control and tilt and twist the angles here as we like them. The bottom is the bottom angle. Actually, that controls the whole offset. The bottom angle is this one. That's right. So it really is, a lot of the commands you notice here in 3Design are really based upon trial and error. It's just a matter of adjusting it until you're happy with what you see. And the nice thing about it is, even after you've done the shape, we can always go back to it later and reconsider what we've already done until we get the shape we want. So that's good enough for those claws. I can go back to position, and I can also set rounded tips as well. Might not be a bad idea. Make some nice soft roundings on the shapes. And we'll call that good. And that gives us the basic claw setting here. Now, what I can also do is I can go back into this ring as well, or even I can go back into the ring circle itself. This may be a bit tricky to find here, so we can actually go to the history tree. Now, this history tree is a list of sequence of every command you've run so far in more or less chronological order, going from top to bottom. Sketch is right there up front. So I can double click on the ring there, and I can go back in and edit it however I like. So I could bring in the size of my opening here by a few degrees, make it 0.17, for example. I can just recompute it very quickly, and the ring will readjust. So, just like that, I can actually tweak, modify, and rework the shape of basic solitaire. Now that I have the ring the way I want it, in the solitaire mode, I'm going to modify this to make it a 3-stone. I'll exit out of the sketch mode here, and I'm going to make another stone to add into here. It might be helpful if I hide or freeze the stone. I can just select the stone and right-click on it, and go to Freeze so I can see through it. And now I can go ahead and just make a second stone at the center. A round stone will be fine. I need to lift it up, just like I did before. Get it into position here. And I'll make sure it's the right size. 3.5 mil, let's try it 3. And then I'll go here to the where it says the material type, and I'll change it to another material here. Sapphire, we'll try that. And then when I'm done, just green tick to keep. Now I can see that. I see a stone buried inside the frozen stone. The nice thing about freezing in 3Design is it allows us to see objects underneath. Might even not be a good idea to freeze the collet as well. So now I can just see this blue stone here inside the frozen object. And I can start making a setting for that. I'll start with, oops, that's the wrong one. I'll start with the belts. It's always a good habit to do the belts first and then do the claws. That way they'll actually fall where you want them to be. You can set the depth to whatever I want to be. You can make them bigger or smaller as you like. Now, if you're not sure which one you're grabbing, whichever arrow lights up is the one that your mouse is over, even if it doesn't look like it isn't necessarily over. Like right there, I'm not touching it, but the red is lighting up. Just a little bit of advice there for keeping things in line. Once we have that, we can also change the angle. The angle's fine, I think. Green tick that to keep it. And then I can go and select that gallery bars again and add the claws. Now these claws, I'm happy to leave straight. And I can go into this list here and see what we have options for. The sizing, make it maybe a little bit thicker. If you're not sure about what size it is, it will tell you here, down in this properties menu. Everything about these physical objects will appear here and here somewhere. So then we can control the angle of the claws. Those are fine. We can control the offset of the claws and the angling of those just by controlling these upper and lower arrows. And we can add a rounded tip just like we did before. And finally we have claw length, which is the last one in here. We wanted some extra length on these claws, but since these are smaller stones, we got a little bit more leeway here. We're happy with that metal, we're happy with that. Green tick to keep it. And there we are. The setting's buried inside there, but that's fine because we can always grab it and hold down Control to add the objects to your selection and select all three. And then I'm going to actually maneuver them into position. There's a command in the Create Solids menu, it's opposite Jeweler's Bench, called Move Scale Rotate, which will allow us to freeform position these if we wished. In particular, in this case, I just want to rotate it once, and that's around this axle, the center of the ring, as you can see there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this object, looks like it's, yeah, so I'm then going to go to the, since we already have it put in here, I'm going to go to the rotation here, and we could use free rotation if we wanted to, I don't. I'm going to go to the around axis, and it's going to say, it's going to lock, move, and scale while we're trying to use this. That's fine. Because I want to rotate it around only one direction and one axis. And that's kind of what this rotate around axis is for. So I can then go up to the axes and planes and look for the options here for which ones I can select. And for my around axis rotation, I want to make sure I'm working with the y-axis. That's that one right there. So then it's going to create a single arrow that allows me to spin an object around that axis. Very nice. So all I have to do is just get it into the right position there. That's fine. And then once I have that, I'm going to take that shape and make a mirror image of it in the same menu, duplicate here, Actually, it's a bit further down from position. It's in the Create Solids menu. And it's smart enough to know I want it on the opposite side of the ring. So just green tick that to keep it. And there we have it, 3 stones. Only a couple finishing touches left. I'll want to unlock, or unfreeze rather, the center stone. So go to it in the history tree here, find it and click on Show. Do the same thing with its setting. And then finally I want to open up the ring itself to allow some space for the setting itself. So I'll go back in to the ring circle again and select the curve here. So we're in sketch mode now. I just did that by double clicking on that. And I can increase the opening angle. Let's try 28. Not enough. Okay, so let's try 45. That's pretty close. Make it 46. Okay, so at any time I can hit recompute to see what will happen. And there we have it. I'll exit out of sketch mode just to look at it as a normal ring. We have ourselves a 3-stone ring, which is infinitely changeable. Every single part of this can be quickly adjusted. I could change the ring size, I could change the stone shapes, I could change the stone sizes, I could change the colors of anything very quickly and easily. For more information on our 3Design CAD course or other courses we teach here, visit holtsacademy.com.